Actually, Councilmember Moore, I will turn it over to you to do the introductions.
Cool. Um,
Unless you'd like me to read the folks that are
Thank you,
accepting.
Mr. Mayor. If you can do the introduction, that'd be great, and I will
You
jump
bet.
into the proclamation.
Okay, accepting is Jamie Lee, LICSW, Special Projects Manager for King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division, and additional speakers from Telecare and Valley Cities. Councilmember Moore.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to present this proclamation of National Recovery Month, and I will begin to read it here. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of one's overall wellness, and whereas prevention of mental and substance use disorders is effective and people recover in our area and around the nation, and whereas preventing and overcoming mental and substance use disorder is essential to achieving healthy lifestyle, both physically and emotionally, and whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of individuals with mental and or substance use disorder to implement preventative measures, recognize the sign of a problem and guide those in need to appropriate treatments and recovery support services. And whereas an estimate 400,000 people in King County are affected by these conditions, and whereas to help more people achieve and sustain long-term recovery, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and the City of Federal Way invite all residents to participate in National Recovery Month. And now, therefore, we, the undersigned mayor and the City Council of the City of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as National Recovery Month and encourage all citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies to support this year's Recovery Month theme, Rising Above It All, Wellness, Resilience, and Recovery. Signed this 7th day of September 2021, Federal Way Mayor and City Council signatures as follows. Thank you.
All right. And do we have Jamie Lee?
This is Jamie. Can you all hear me?
We can, yes.
All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Lee. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've worked in the Puget Sound serving folks in our area for the past 15 years. Grew up in the Federal Way area. On behalf of the people in recovery living in King County, the King County Recovery Health and Recovery Division, and the citizens of Federal Way, Washington, we thank you for your leadership and support for mental health and substance use recovery, and for proclaiming September 2021 as National Recovery Month. We also want to recognize people in recovery and our local agency partners who provide prevention, intervention, treatment, and support to people and families who are seeking recovery from mental health and substance use issues. I want to recognize behavioral health providers in our attendance today. We have Rebecca Powers, Rose Baldridge from Valley City's Behavioral Health Care. We have Stacy Devaney and Janet Bardossi from Telecare. Your recognition of Recovery Month is important as we join together to promote recovery, celebrate those in treatment and in recovery, and continue to educate our communities about how to overcome stigma and discrimination related to mental health and substance use disorders. As we do this, we build a great quality of life for ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and the community of Federal Way. Thank you, Mayor Jim Farrell and honorable council members for acknowledging and celebrating Recovery Month. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to say a few words?
Hi, my name is Janet Bardossi. I'm representing Telecare King County. Hey, I wanted to do a less formal statement, but also represent recovery in its really profound forms. It was interesting. We were at lunch the other day and celebrating our director of nursing and her birthday, and they were asking, where do you work? And we said Telecare. And oftentimes when you talk about where you work, especially when you work in acute psychiatric care, it shuts down a conversation. But she talked about her sister, and she talked about her sister that had access services all over King County and all over Federal Way. And I thought it would be a depressing story about how she had struggled to get better. The waitress started crying, and she said what she found was that her sister got better. After 15, 20 years of accessing services throughout county and throughout our city, that her sister was doing well and had a job and was working, and that they had reconnected. And it was interesting because I had a fireman come into the center later that day, and he said, "Do these people ever get better?" And I remember that conversation at lunch. And how do people get better? They get better because we have leadership on a government level. We have firemen that help get people to recovery, and police. We have our behavioral health brothers and sisters. And it's an interesting time to talk about resiliency. I think we all need it. And health and recovery. I think it's been a struggle, I think, for probably all of us this last year. But for me, it's a great reminder recovery can and does happen. It doesn't necessarily always happen in our time and in our calendar, but it does happen. And I thank everyone who's on this phone call or Zoom call, and everybody that's representing leadership positions for your support, because it does make a world of difference, not just to the person suffering, but to our families and our communities. So thank you so much for this declaration. It means the world to us.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to say a few words? Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Great to hear from Jamie and Janet, and thank you for the support of everybody involved. Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Okay, I think everybody can agree this is a very, recovery is obviously a very important part of what many people's lives, and a turning point to get people in more productive lives. Rose, were you going to say something? I see you were. Rose Baldrige, did you want to say a few words?
So sorry, I was muted, then I thought I was unmuted, and now I was muted again. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Valley Cities. We've been around for 50 plus years, providing behavioral health care to services to people of all ages. And Valley Cities' mission is compassion, connection, and community. And through that, we envision healthy communities where every person is able to achieve their fullest potential. We have, right now, Valley Cities has 12 comprehensive outpatient clinics and 2 inpatient facilities where we offer licensed mental health counseling for all ages and substance use disorder treatment, as well as many other services provided, homeless outreach and housing programs. So we have been a part of the community and so appreciate the ongoing support of the communities that Valley Cities is in. And so we hope to continue to provide services and be an integral part of the recovery community.
Great. Thank you, Rose. Great job. I'm glad we got you unmuted. All right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And once again, thank you, everybody, for participating, and thank you, Councilmember Moore. All right. Now we are on to a proclamation for Constitution Week, something we do every September. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Council President Honda, and this will be to Sally Jarvis of Daughters of the American Revolution, Lakota Chapter. Council President Honda.
All right. Thank you. And I know I saw Sally's name on the list of people who were in the meeting. So
Yes.
awesome.
I'm here.
I wish we were at council chambers so I could see you, but it is what it is. Constitution Week. Whereas September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation. And whereas Public Law number 915, signed by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956, guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th as Constitution Day. Whereas celebrations are to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution as we preserve it for posterity, to inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, and to encourage the study of historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. Now therefore, we, the undersigned mayor and city council members of the city of Federal Way, do hereby proclaim September 17th to 23rd, 2021 to be Constitution Week in Federal Way. We ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 and reflect on our heritage of freedom. Signed this 7th day of September, 2021. Thank you, Sally, for being here. Would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to participate in this occasion remotely. I know it seems popular today to criticize the founders of our nation, and especially for the things they didn't do. Some people seem to think they should have been perfect and created a perfect country rather than the more perfect one, which they promised. They'd probably say more nearly perfect today. They obviously knew they weren't perfect, nor was the country they had created. As you sit here tonight, representing the citizens of Federal Way, I'd like you to think about these men who met in the sweltering heat in Philadelphia to produce our Constitution. As politicians yourselves, perhaps you can appreciate that they not only had to consider what was best for the country, but also what the states would approve. I think they did a pretty good job since it allows changes to be made, but not at the whim of every new leader. With whatever flaws it may have, I still think we have the greatest country on earth. By the way, if you happen to be in the other Washington, that's DC, you might want to drop by and visit the Daughters of the American Revolution. They've just completed a renovation of its beautiful building in Washington, D.C., including Constitution Hall, which is nationally known as a performing arts center. If you're a Jeopardy fan, you may have seen the show a few times when it came to you from that location. It's now been restored to its original splendor with close attention to the original design. It is indeed a testament to what women can accomplish when they set their minds to it. In closing, I have a poem I'd like to share with you. We, of course, talk a lot about our ancestors in DAR, but I think each of you can relate to this, no matter what your lineage is or how long ago you or your family has been in this country. It's called Ancestors. If you could see your ancestors all standing in a row, would you be proud of them, or don't you really know? Some strange discoveries are made in climbing family trees, and some of these, I am afraid, do not especially please. If you could see your ancestors all standing in a row, there might be some of them perhaps you would not care to know. But there's another question which requires a different view. If you should meet your ancestors, would they be proud of you? That's an anonymous poem. And thank you again so much for this proclamation. And thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much, Sally. And thank you so much for your commitment to Daughters of the American Revolution and keeping our history alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will be leaving now.
All right. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now let's move on to item C, Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report. We received recently from a group of concerned citizens a petition to take action with regard to certain issues. And I have asked our city attorney, Ryan Call, to discuss, give a briefing to the council and the community about what actions that we're going to be taking and that I proposed and authorized to move forward with. Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and good evening, Council. As the Mayor stated, we did receive at the last council meeting a public comment via email that said it had support of 580 local citizens. They termed it a petition. The Mayor just referred to it as a petition, but I do think it's important to note that it's, in a legal sense, not a petition. A petition is something that is signed by people and we have to address. This is more in the form of a public comment, but it seems to have wide support. Recognizing that, the Mayor has directed me to go over what we can and cannot do under Washington state law, and then also just briefly outline or just inform Council that he's directed me to prepare an ordinance clarifying and expanding the existing prohibitions we already have on the books regarding blocking sidewalks, lying on sidewalks, and blocking traffic. So the email that we received had 3 points that the citizens were demanding the ordinances be passed on. The first was to implement and enforce a ban on public camping, including sleeping on benches and at bus stops, in rights-of-way, sidewalks, and parks. It also would like to see the banning of tent cities on federal-way property. The second point was to implement and enforce bans on the public use of illegal substances and to ban public intoxication. And the third item was to create and fund a homeless service coordinator position to connect the homeless to appropriate services. So I'll take each of those in order. The first is a ban on public camping. To talk about this topic, I think that we need to first refresh everyone's memory about the case, the City of Boise case. So the Ninth Circuit ruled in the Boise case that, well, let me back up. The City of Boise, at some point in the past, criminalized all outdoor camping. They made it a misdemeanor to camp outside in their city. The court reviewed this and found it unconstitutional, basically saying that it's unconstitutional to criminalize a person's conduct when they can't help it. When it's a human condition, when it's part of the biological necessities of being a person, such as sleeping, we can't criminalize it unless we offer them an alternative. So the alternative that the court there outlined was basically they set up a rule saying you cannot criminalize outdoor sleeping unless a city is able to prove in court that there's a free alternative to sleeping outdoors. Most cities cannot meet that standard right now. And City of Federal Way certainly can't at this point. So pursuant to that case, a citywide ban on sleeping outdoors would be unconstitutional. Now, what's important is that that does not mean that people can just sleep anywhere and that the city's powerless to try to control where homeless people sleep in the city. It just means that we can't have a blanket ban throughout the city saying outdoor camping is illegal. What we can do is enforce private property rights. No one has a right to camp on someone else's private property, and that's trespassing, and we enforce those laws. The city can also prevent or prohibit sleeping on city property at certain times or in sensitive places. So for instance, we would not allow someone to camp in the lobby of City Hall. Currently, the city prohibits being in the parks at all after hours. So once the parks are closed, you cannot be in the park at all, whether it's to sleep or do whatever people do in the park at night with the lights off. That's already prohibited under current ordinances. It also, our current regulations prohibit tents in parks. You cannot store tents in parks. And we'll continue to not allow camping at city facilities. It would interfere with operations, and there's obvious logistical issues with allowing that. Additionally, we have something on the books, and we've gone back to this ordinance repeatedly since I started working here. It's the pedestrian interference ordinance. The current version of the ordinance prohibits lying or standing on the sidewalks in a way that would block people's travel, either on the sidewalk or road. It's fairly broadly phrased, but I do believe that there's room there to clarify this law and also maybe expand and describe more succinctly where we don't want people lying in public. So lying on a park bench, so that I guess the idea would be if somebody is using the public space, whether it's a right of way or a bench, in a way that's not its intended use, that's interfering with other people's enjoyment of it. A bench in a park is meant to be sat on. It's not meant to be slept on for multiple hours. That's not its purpose. The sidewalk is meant to allow people to travel from one point to another point. It's not meant as a place to sleep. So I think that there is some room to clarify and expand those rules, and we're currently working on that in law, and we'll bring up proposed ordinance to council when that's ready. Our current law also currently prohibits loitering in the roadway or in the median, so on a median. I would also like to point out there's a difference between what is the law and what's written down as an ordinance and enforcement. Enforcement is always problematic, and most of these are all misdemeanors that I'm talking about right now. Misdemeanor crimes generally are the lowest. They're not safety crimes. They're usually the lowest on the priority list of officers to enforce. So not that we couldn't have some kind of enforcement, emphasis enforcement on these types of things, but we do have laws on the books currently that relate to that. So moving on to the second point of the email, it's about the public use of illegal substances and public intoxication. So I'm going to start with public intoxication. In the 70s, public intoxication laws were repealed in the state and pretty much everywhere. The US Supreme Court ruled that the government couldn't criminalize someone for their state of being. So you can't criminalize someone for existing. It's kind of similar to the idea in the Boise case that sometimes you can't be, it's not against the law to be intoxicated, I guess is the bottom line. Some people can't help that they're alcoholics. Some people can't help that they're addicted to drugs. Criminalizing the mere state of being intoxicated was seen as an Eighth Amendment violation. It was cruel and unusual punishment. Now that's different than addressing behavior that is often associated with being intoxicated, such as drunk driving. Obviously, that's against the law. We can and actually do prohibit actively drinking alcohol in public or using drugs in public. So usually the law focuses on the conduct. So DUI, disorderly conduct, if someone is being boisterous or trying to pick a fight in public, harassment, if they're actively threatening people, assault, if they actually do attack somebody. Those are all criminal actions, and those are what the law addresses. So directly saying that trying to legislate or prohibit in public intoxication is not lawful. That's been the law of the land for 40 years. So turning to actual use, that is different. So the state pretty much entirely has preempted the field on public use of intoxicants. And when I say preemption, I mean the state legislature has already passed laws that make it illegal to use substances in public. So for example, there's a state law that prohibits the use of marijuana in public, even though the state has legalized use in a private setting. It's still illegal to walk around with a marijuana cigarette lit in public. The violation is an infraction. It's not a crime. It can be cited with a ticket. Similarly, public consumption of alcohol is an infraction. So both of those items have been banned publicly. Illegal drugs, which is what the email was specifically talking about. We're talking about heroin, methamphetamine, things like that. Those remain criminal substances. It's a misdemeanor crime to possess those, to intentionally possess, let alone use. So if someone's using one of those substances in public, clearly it'd be pretty easy to show intent that they know that it's intentional possession. They know what they are possessing because they're actually using it. So there's already law in the books that says that is a misdemeanor crime. The one hiccup with that is the recent Senate Bill 5476 requirement that we first refer, when police find someone that's using an illegal substance like heroin in public, the police are required to refer them to treatment twice. So I know that the police department is currently working on a strategy to track those referrals. On the third time, if they're caught after being documented twice with the referral, they can be cited criminally for a misdemeanor violation of the Controlled Substance Possession Act. So what all that means is essentially, because the state has already decided what the punishments are, what the penalties are for using these substances in public, the city is not free to make harsher or different laws about this. So if someone disagrees with the current state of the law on use of heroin or other illegal substances, the proper place to try to get that changed is at the state level. It would be the state legislatures, not the city of federal. The third item was a recommendation that, or a request that a homeless service coordinator position be created. Currently, the city splits the functions that a homeless service coordinator would fill among basically two departments. We have a human services employees in the community development department, two employees there to handle that, and then there's also some of the functions in the police department. Ultimately, this is not a legal issue. Obviously, the city has the authority to create such a position. It's a policy call, and currently the mayor does not believe that it would be a good use of our money when we already are serving these functions in existing city employees to create a new position that would cost more money. That money could instead be used either for this issue or for enforcement or some other need that the city has. So currently the mayor is not recommending, to my knowledge, that this position be created, but the city could if it would like. I guess that's kind of the law on those three items. The petition or email does ask about enforcement quite a bit, and enforcement is kind of a whole separate issue. And like I said, a lot of these are misdemeanor crimes or infractions. So often our officers are engaged in more serious criminal activity, preventing or investigating those types of crimes. But I would defer to the police chief if you wanted to ask any questions about how we might more effectively enforce these laws. And that's my report.
Hey, council, any questions of Ryan at this stage? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ryan. All right. Now we will have a COVID-19 update from Bill Vadino, Policy Advisor.
Mayor, Council President, and Council members, can you hear me? Very good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir. This information is based on today's Seattle King County Public Health data from their website, which we've shared before, and we're going to encourage the public to continue to look at. And also, there's a briefing today from Dennis Worsham that he did for the King County Council. That'll be on YouTube very soon, probably within minutes. And I encourage people to go to their YouTube channel because it's very informative as well too. But the bottom line is the COVID-19 Delta variant is spreading fast. As you've read and heard, state health officials are concerned about the high number of these cases and hospitalizations. The number of new COVID-19 cases has been hovering at 4,000 a day statewide, and those hospitalization numbers, those follow after about 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the latest charts, which are on the website, show the numbers still appear to be high in King County and Federal Way. As of today in Federal Way, there were 560 positive cases in the last 14 days, 32 hospitalizations in the last 2 weeks, and then one death, which seems low compared to what we've all experienced before, so we'll keep our fingers crossed, but even one death is a tragedy. King County, not only when you look at their chart shows an upward arrow, it shows an exclamation point. I've never seen that before, so as this accelerates. And when you look at hospitalizations, you'll see a fourth peak. There was the peak in May, and then there was the peak in December, January, and then the peak in April, May, and now we're about to get to the peak of where we were, especially for the first two peaks. So, but I encourage you all to go to that website. It's just kingcounty.gov, Department's Health, and you'll find it. Statewide, over the Labor Day weekend, the State Department of Health asked people to discourage them to travel and try not to participate in outdoor activities where they can put at risk, because as I mentioned, the healthcare system is already overwhelmed. And right now, statewide, hospitalizations are the highest it's ever been in the pandemic compared to King County. As of today, September 7th, breaking news, as you know, everyone ages 5 plus at outdoor events with 500 or more people are now required, and of course it's required in public indoor spaces. And whether or not you're vaccinated, we're encouraged to wear masks in indoor settings, grocery, retail, theaters, and at the outdoor events. Otherwise, now with places like the State Fair, even though the State Fair is now requiring, they're encouraging crowded outdoor settings where people can't remain less than 6 feet apart to also mask. And then if you're a sports fan, the Kraken, the Seahawks, the Sounders, the UW, Washington State University, and the Mariners are now going to be asking for proof of vaccination after a certain point, or a recent test. And that's why, well, as you've heard from Dr. Fauci and others, and as you heard from Tim's COVID memo, Tim Johnson's COVID memo, there's now a variant out there called Mu. And as he went through his Greek alphabet, much like hurricanes, we're running out of variants, but hopefully we'll do better against this one. The other big piece of news is vaccinations. This is how the vaccine is working versus not working. In King County, over the past 30 days, people who were not fully vaccinated were 7 more times more likely to test positive for COVID-19, 7 times more. Those who were not vaccinated are 49 times more likely to get hospitalized. And those who are not vaccinated are 32 times more likely to be deceased from COVID-19 than fully vaccinated people. And those are Seattle King County Public Health statistics. The great news in King County is 84.1% have received at least 1 dose, and 77.9% have completed their vaccine series. Us down in South King County, we're at 71%. When you look at the east and the north, they're in the 80s. Seattle's just under 80. And as far as race, ethnicity, we continue to make efforts, King County Public Health and all of us, to get the vaccine to the communities. You've seen them at all over the place, including the Federal Way Farmers Market. And that's resulting in, for instance, the American Indian, Alaska Native, and Asian American populations are now at 89%. Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders are at 90. White Caucasians at 72, and we need to get Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino over the line. They're hovering right now at 64%. So the bottom line is we can get people registered. Anybody over age 12 is eligible to get vaccinated. There are sites online, Kent, Auburn, Seattle, Redmond, Shoreline, local pharmacies, and now the farmers market. And if you're going to write this down real quick, your COVID vaccine, kingcounty.gov, or any spelling Google will grab, will get you there. So moving forward, please continue to message to your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, the community, to please consider getting vaccinated, to mask up, and please be careful out there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bill, for that comprehensive report. Appreciate it. Okay, now to Steve McNay, Communications and Government Affairs Coordinator on the Federal Way Environmental Review update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council President Honda, council members. This is a really quick update. Just wanted to let you know we initially intended on reporting back to the council on September 7th with a more broad-based approach, but given the dog days of summer and some conflicts in calendars, we weren't able to do that. So I wanted to let you know where we're at. The mayor has signed the interlocal agreement with K4C, and that has been sent up to K4C for Executive Constantine's signature. We haven't received it back yet, but we've signed it on our side. We're working with K4C to begin the greenhouse gas emissions survey for the city of Federal Way. It's a comprehensive survey to see where we're expending our greenhouse gases and where we can make improvements. And then on October 22nd at 11 a.m., I will facilitate the first meeting of the working group for the Federal Way Environmental Committee to look at ways to reduce our carbon footprint and improve our environmental standing in the region. So that's where we're at. Nothing further. You're on mute, Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Now our recent events. We had back in mid-August on 8/14, we had the second Town Square movie in the park. That was a great opportunity for the community to get together, and thanks to the Parks Department and the volunteers to help make that happen. We had the Lions Club car show on 8/28. It was just immediately adjacent to the farmers market in that area, and that was a great show. We had the kickoff and groundbreaking for the Honrui Garden Project on 8/28, right there off Campus Drive, essentially between the King County Aquatic Center and the Little League ball fields. It was a great event. Many council members were there, members of the community were there, and it's the groundbreaking for something that's been years in the works. So I'd like to thank everybody involved in that, and it was a total success. We had our three legislators there. We had our county council person there, most of not all the city council, and quite a number of individuals from the Korean community, and we had a port commissioner there. So it was a great event. All right, upcoming events. This Saturday is the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and at that time, at the top of the town center steps, right next to the Performing Arts and Event Center, we're going to be dedicating the new Veterans Memorial, and that'll be at 11 a.m. on 9/11. That's Saturday, 9/11 at 11 a.m. And we would add the paper. We've got some emails going out to folks, and we just want to invite everybody to come down. We're going to be done, hopefully within about 45 minutes. So we've got a great program. And I do want to make sure to remind everybody that at 1 p.m. at the fire station on 320th, between the freeway and Military Road, the fire department will be hosting their 9/11 event. And that's something that we always, the council and I and many members of the community attend. And so we wanted to plan our event to where it would dovetail with the fire department's event. But please attend the fire department event as well, which will be, they've got some great speakers, and it's at their 9/11 memorial right there on 320th east of the freeway. And yeah, once again, Town Center Steps, September 11th, 11 a.m. So I'll see you there. All right, and now it's time for council committee reports. First, we've got Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. I'll make it very brief. Our next meeting will be September 14th at 5 p.m. It will probably be virtual. We do have something very interesting coming up. Representative Jamila Taylor was able to secure some funding for the courts. I think it's 44 million to use for certain things. Part of that we would like to have for our court. Judge Larson would like to create a sequential intercept model. If you want to know about that, we'll be talking about that at our next meeting. It's going to be a resolution that we're going to have to support the efforts to address addiction and mental illness with this sequential intercept model. Very quickly, the other things on the agenda are janitorial contract amendment, a bid acceptance for some roofing replacements. We have an HVAC service agreement You may be interested in knowing that we're doing a lease agreement for a Twin Lakes substation for our police. And then we're going to get some cost reimbursement for a registered sex offender, King County Registered Sex Offender Program. And then we're going to do an agreement with Valley Narcotics Enforcement Team, Drug Enforcement Team, and high intensity drug trafficking area. And so there'll be some agreements being discussed about that. And Mayor, before we go to our reports later in the evening, I'd just like to mention something now that does have to do with public safety. And so fortunate that our officer was not injured when he was shot at. Just a terrible thing that happened last week. But I do want to mention that our school, I did speak with one of our school board members, as the mayor is aware, on Saturday about having a public meeting with the school board. The school board does meet at the different schools. It used to be, the school board used to meet in our council chambers on TV so that people, if they had a question or a discussion about certain things going on in the school district, that they would come to a specific place at a specific time, and then it would be on television. So people who are not familiar with computers would be able to know what was going on. And so I was suggesting that that the school board might look into doing that again. Of course, that's their decision, but I was trying to encourage that. And while we were at it, then I was asking if we couldn't start having joint meetings. I know that the mayor and the superintendent meet, but I would like to see our council meet with the school board on a regular basis. And the reason for that is the schools are so integral to what we're going to do moving forward with our city, and also to do with bringing business here, corporations that will provide living wage jobs. It's very integral. All of those things need to be interconnected. And so I'm hoping that we might be able to start having joint meetings again. We used to in the past, and I'm hoping we can start that again. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I know, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. And I know that Council President Honda is very passionate, is very interested in this issue. Council President Honda, would you like to address that issue? Because I know that's an issue of previous concern with you and previous interest.
Yes, we did try to do this in the past, and we ran into some issues. We'll certainly try it again. I think that it's really important that we all work together as elected officials here in the city for the betterment of the city. And so we'll certainly try to get this going. I think it would be best to do it after the election so that, just so that anyone involved, I just think it would be better. Yeah. I mean, there'll be a new school board member because President McAnally is retiring, and there'll be a new board council member here. So it would be best to, in my opinion, to do it after November.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to do it in person at that time. I think we would get more done if we were in person.
And maybe during the retreat, the retreat is yours, council, but just a suggestion, and maybe that's an issue that we could talk about areas of collaboration between the school district. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll reach out to the new superintendent, Dr. Pfeiffer, and we've recently been communicating, and I'll reach out to her, express this, and also I would encourage you to reach out to your colleagues on the cohorts on the school board. And then we'll get this. I don't think it should be a challenge to get us together and to talk about the issues. 23,000 children, over 3,500 staff. That's a huge part of our community. And one of the things it's why we always invite them to the legislative breakfast because, as I say, we are the schools and the schools are us. And so, so I think it's very important that we're on. So thank you, Councilmember Kochmar. Great point. Well, we're going to get moving on that. And I'll keep you posted about that. Thank you, Council President Honda. Councilmember Moore, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you so much. Councilor Kochmar, I appreciate that idea. And, just for the record, this isn't anything that's brand new or thought of. Yeah. Obviously, we've had veteran council members that have worked on this set. Specifically, Councilmember Copain has worked really hard on this issue. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that. But definitely look forward to seeing if we can move the needle forward as it's really pivotal to have, quite frankly, all government agencies meeting and working together around Federal Way. Thank you.
It's always a good time for a good idea. Thank you. Okay. Thank you again, everybody. Okay, Land Use Transportation Committee, that would be Councilmember Baruso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keep it short. We didn't have a meeting in August. Our next meeting is on Monday, September 13th, 5 o'clock, and it will be Zoom. We have 4 action items on there, so I invite the public to attend. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, that is Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did not have any meeting in the month of August. So our next meeting is going to be on September 28th at 5 p.m. And I believe it is going to be on Zoom. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Councilmember Safadas.
Thank you, Mayor. Our meeting for tomorrow, September 8th, has been canceled. So our next meeting is going to be October 13th at 10 a.m. and probably on Zoom. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Moore with the Public Issues Committee at the Sound Cities Association. That's the
Thank you
pick with the SCA.
Pick with the SCA. I'm happy to be a member of that committee, along with my colleague, Councilmember Safadasan. I will be in attendance to the meeting tomorrow, and I will report back to the council as for any other updates at the following meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council President Honda for your report.
Thank you. So to follow up on Councilmember Moore's comments about the PIC, council members can go to the SCA website, or perhaps you're already getting the emails, and you can see what the PIC agenda is and what they're going to be working on. And you can also attend. Their meetings are currently being held on Zoom. You can't speak, but you can attend. And it's certainly worth your time, I believe, to attend those meetings and hear what all the 38 cities in that are a member of Sound Cities are working on. And you always learn something. It's really interesting. So you're more than welcome to attend those meetings. I would like to talk to the public about why we are on Zoom. I've been hearing some comments on social media, which is such a great way to communicate. And we are not on Zoom to hide from the public, but we're on Zoom because of the conditions with COVID. And we're trying to protect the public as well as our staff from getting infected right now. It's this disease is easy to pass along, even if you are immunized against it. And this is just for public safety. And honestly, we would so much rather be in council chambers than we would be on Zoom. I didn't expect to have to go back to Zoom. And we would so much rather be in council chambers with the public and seeing you and hearing from you in person. So please don't think that we're doing this because we want to do this. We're doing this purely to protect the people of Federal Way, our staff, and anyone else who could come in contact with someone who is infected and doesn't even know it. I mean, you could certainly have COVID and not know it. And that is one way that this is being passed so easily between people, is not having any symptoms, but actually being infected. And our retreat is coming up on October 9th. It's currently scheduled to be held at Dumas Bay. Hopefully that will happen. If not, we will get in, let everybody know in plenty of time what's going on with it. But we will be having a retreat on October 9th. Council members, I know you don't want me to keep bugging you, but please talk to me about the retreat. I need to know what you want to cover at the retreat. So, and we need to let staff and the mayor know what our plans are for the retreat. So please contact me, and then I will quit bugging you. And that's all for tonight at this point.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Okay. And now, as I like to say, the most important part of the meeting, which is public comment. Would the city clerk please read the city rules?
Yes, Mayor. Rules. In accordance with state law, the City of Federal Way prohibits any testimony regarding any campaign for election or promotion of, or opposition to any ballot proposition during public comment. City Council rules of procedure prohibit any personal, impertinent, threatening, or slanderous remarks during public comment. The mayor may interrupt comments that continue too long or violate the rules of conduct. No speaker may convey or donate their time for speaking to another speaker. The mayor has the authority to preserve order at all meetings of the council and cause the removal of any person from the meeting for being disorderly. Any individual comments are limited to 3 minutes each.
Okay, great. Let's do in-person first. And actually, I have, excuse me, I've got the list here. Mandy Richardson.
Mayor, Mandy was joined earlier, but is no longer on the meeting. So Bob Drake is.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Drake.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Councilmember Kochmar, I'm glad to hear we are looking at narcotic issues and will be implementing a strategy. I understand we have a homeless problem here in Federal Way. We have talked to many of them. Strangely, most all of them are not from the Federal Way area when we talk to them. How are they getting here, I'm wondering? I oppose no barrier housing in the city. If people need housing, we must have rules. One of these rules is they need to be on track or want to be living a clean and sober lifestyle. Low barrier means very little rules. Rules and laws are the basis of a civilized society. These low barrier approach seems to be a dismal failure in other areas. As overdose and addiction are at all-time highs, low barrier is simply enabling. In some West Coast cities, overdose is passing COVID deaths like San Francisco. I do not oppose housing that includes mandatory and humane drug abstinence programs. Mandatory. They also must help our city out. They just can't sit around and do drugs. They can be productive until employment comes and can help clean or make our city a better place to live in many ways. If I can do that, they can do that. If you want to be part of a city and have free housing, you must be part of the solution in your life and your city. It appears so many areas of our city are understaffed. Requiring help from free housing residences would help with that issue. I'm all for giving them a place to live as long as they don't want to sit around, do nothing except drugs. I object to the idea of low barrier housing. It's just not working. City Council, isn't crime high enough here in our city without adding free drug dens to the mix? Don't let King County tell you what to do with their unproven failed policies. Take control of this project, City Council. What I mean by that is establish the rules and criteria that these hotels will be operating under. We make the rules. You as a city council establish criteria for our city and these hotels and public safety. I'm asking you to think outside the box and use innovations. Have some basic requirements to be in these hotels so we will not create anarchy in our city. I also have a very specific question for the mayor and city council. Will we be housing people who are mentally ill? And if so, what safeguards will be in place to protect citizens? Please be specific. I also had a comment about what Ryan said earlier. When I was in town, I'd been on vacation for a while, but the benches and sidewalks at 320th and 99 are constantly filled with passed out people doing drugs in the open in front of the public and our kids. This takes away from the citizens' right to enjoy this space, among many other places in Federal Way. Even if these ordinances were modified from present, many of us don't believe they are or will be enforced because we haven't seen this in our near past for various reasons. All you need to do is drive our public areas. It feels like our city doesn't want to help to address citizens who emailed concerns. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Bob. Jacqueline Copley. Jacqueline?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, council and mayor. Over the last several months, I've been watching the city council meetings in an effort to try to understand how Federal Way has been allowed to sink to ever increasing lows. From drug addicts on virtually every corner in our commercial areas and bus stops to needles littering the sidewalks and streets to shootings. I don't remember how many shootings there have been this week, but I think there's been about 4. And it's just, I'm not even surprised anymore. And it's so frustrating and concerning. anyways, the local paper isn't reporting a lot of these things, probably because they don't have the staffing, which I understand, but it feels like it's falling on the citizens to keep each other informed of, what to watch out for: thefts, stolen vehicles, constant stolen vehicles. And I think there was like one theft reported in August in some of the crime data that is reported. And I don't know how that happens, because I know it's been significantly higher than that. And I feel like we, the people, the citizens, are just becoming more and more exasperated that our friends, our families, ourselves seem to be experiencing this increasing crime. I don't feel safe going to the grocery stores. I don't feel safe. I went to Old Navy the other day, and I felt very uncomfortable with the people that were right outside of the front door. I parked in a place I wasn't even supposed to park because I didn't want to park further away. And I told the lady at the cash register, and she understood. She doesn't feel safe working there either. And so we know that a lot of this crime has to do with drug addiction. Someone brought up, they're starting to wonder if there's a turf war happening with all the shootings that are happening. Is there a turf war for the people who are supplying the drugs to the addicts? Because for every addict, there's someone supplying their drugs. This is a huge problem. And you have families and people who just want to live and work here who are experiencing this every day. And quite honestly, I find the mayor and the leadership, you need to be held accountable. The buck stops with you guys, and I don't see accountability. And it's very frustrating. And so I want you guys to step it up here and take it more seriously. And also, a lot of people don't know about the drug addicts that are going to be put into the extended stay and Red Lion. And I would like you to be informing citizens of that, because I think that's very important, just the same way you're going to be canvassing about the Afghan refugees that are going to be housed there. Why are you canvassing about that, but not the other thing that's going to have long-term consequences on criminal activity, on safety, on drug addiction, on more drugs coming into our city? This is a problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Debbie Peterson.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all. I wish we were face to face, but I'm thrilled that we're taking advantage of platforms like this so that we can be safe. I'm Debbie Peterson. I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother now. I'm a small business owner here in Federal Way. I'm also an advocate for those in our community who need our supports. And tonight I want to talk to you just for a couple of minutes, because that's all I get, about early learning and about how necessary it is that we as a community, as city members, are supporting our childcare providers so that they're able to serve our children and families. And as our economy opens up and as we're preparing for learning how to live through COVID, I'm asking that we all keep in mind of those providers who've kept their doors open throughout all of this crisis. And as we open back up and start to serve families and communities more, our childcare providers are going to need our supports and our collaboration and us all working together as leaders, as business owners, as community members, and as just general good neighbors to each other. So I just wanted to take a minute to say hi to all of you at once. It's good to see your faces and to listen to all this work you're doing. Councilmember Kochmar, I hope that as the school board and city council joint meetings start to develop, which I'm really, really excited to hear that energy and interest building back up in that. I hope that early learning is included within that approach to including all of the education that our kids experience over the lifespan of their little lives. And I also want to speak to others who might be listening to this meeting tonight too. All of you out there who value our city and value participating in these kinds of opportunities to work together. I ask that you consider how you can help make sure families get access to the care that they need. I ask that you find ways to work together with your neighbors and with other community members as well. And I look forward to potentially coming back to get to meet with you more regularly in the future about how we can make sure that our youngest little ones are getting all of the supports they need. I've had the pleasure and the privilege of coming here before. Years ago, when there was the Violence Prevention Steering Coalition Committee, I think I reversed some of those words. I told you all we'd failed our kids. And I still do believe that we have a lot to do for our youth and our young adults and for what's happening to our kids now. And I believe that if we work hard together, we can make sure that our kids on into the future have more of what they need.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right. Stephanie, I believe that concludes the public speakers, right? Or do we have another?
Nope, we have some more. So we have, let's see here. We have more added on our list here. Hold on. So we have Ken Blevins. Then we have David Vandevliet. Then we have Allison Fine and Sai Semeneni.
Hello, Mayor, Council, can you guys hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for hearing me out. I wanted to get a chance to talk to you guys because we didn't have the last meeting. So we've been spending our time at the Planning and Zoning Commission. A lot of community members have gone out there and actually listened to see what is actually going on with the city. And wow, surprising that we found out the mayor, you, Jim Farrell, has ordered your city to move forward with SB 1220 full speed ahead, where only a few cities are doing that. Most of them are not. And I want the community to realize what that means. In the first meeting, your planning guy recommended 1,200 new attics or 1,200 total attics be housed in Federal Way. And that means buying up hotels all the way through the Pacific Highway South, and then also buying up homes in the actual neighborhoods every 0.5 miles. So nobody was happy to hear that, by the way. And so the comments were there, and the community spoke. And so the next meeting, the city comes back with probably your orders to cut the number in half. So unfortunately, that's not good enough either, because like a speaker said earlier, my group has actually gone out and talked to the people that are homeless in our community, and we found out they're homeless drug addicts. The chronic homeless that they're talking about that they want to house in our city from Seattle, not Federal Way, are drug addicts. And so you don't house an addict, they don't become less of an addict. That's not compassion, that's called a drug den. And you're putting people without any kind of background check into our communities, into our neighborhoods, to put everybody at risk. That's 10 to 20 drug addicts in our neighborhoods, in homes that you're allowing to be bought, okay? That's under your leadership. So that's what I wanted people to know that weren't at these commission meetings. And I want the city council to know that we know this is gonna come to you, and we hope that you would think or work in our benefit as Federal Way citizens. We've gone out to hundreds of homes and asked people what they thought about this. Nobody thinks it's a good idea. I went to hundreds of businesses that have been affected by this homeless drug addiction problem that the mayor's done very little about. He's, shutting down this and that, moving things around and making it look like he's doing something, but it's not doing anything, because you're allowing King County to come in here, buy hotels, buy homes, and so on. You know that you can put a moratorium on this. You have attorneys that said that are trying to convince the commission not to do that, but you know better. Do what's right for citizens and work for us, Jim Farrell, work for us, City Council. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. I do need to let folks know, I appreciate Ken's comments. HB 1220 doesn't take activation from the City Council. HB 1220 was enacted by the state legislature and is the law in every city and every unincorporated area in the entire state. Brian, can you briefly go through? We're not recommending the purchase of all those hotels up and down Pack Highway. King County has bought or they're in the process of buying the red line down at 348. They're in the, they have purchased the extended stay. Those are the only 2 hotels I'm aware of that King County is involved in. Brian, do you want to just briefly summarize what we're up to with proposing before, in this process with health through housing and the guideline in response to 1220?
Right. So like many cities, we're dealing with the passage of House Bill 1220, which does say that cities can't prohibit transitional housing or emergency shelters in certain zones. So that's the provisions that we're trying to work up right now, is ways that we can deal with this new law, because like I said, all cities are dealing with it, and we can do nothing, which would basically have the law on the books, which would provide no limitation at all for the city. Or we can adopt measures that would provide standards, provide controls, provide limits. And as the speaker pointed out, we started at one point because a lot of the cities are trying to come up with a standard because we don't have anything specific from the state or the county yet. So all the cities are in the same situation. We've been talking to each other back and forth about, what are you doing? What are you doing? Trying to get a sense of what the best approach would be. And so we did come with a proposal. We did hear, the Planning Commission did hear public input. We did modify based on the public input, and the proposal that we presented as a modified proposal was forwarded by the commission with no recommendation. And so that's where we're at in the process right now. So it's not to enable the House bill from becoming effective in federal way. That's already taken place. It's to put standards, controls, limits on what otherwise would be allowed with no limitation at all. You're on mute, Mayor.
Yeah, it's a very simple choice. It'll be before the council committee and then the city council shortly thereafter. But we can have some say or no say. But the 1220 is law throughout the entire state. So we'll have a process for that, and I just wanted to make sure that we're talking about that. Brian, you have at my request updated a social media post on this, as well as an email to council. We've got the legal counsel on here as well. What about the moratorium issue?
So House Bill 1220 also calls out moratoriums that cities otherwise in this situation likely would pass because it's new law. There's no standards in place. So often when that happens, a good practice would be to put a moratorium in place so cities can get a handle on the situation. The bill specifically prohibits moratoriums related to this issue, the permanent supportive housing and the emergency shelters. So that's what we're dealing with. There was a city that went ahead and did it anyway, and their attorney said, "It's great. If we do get an actual building permit for one of these uses, we'll have to process it, regardless of the moratorium in place." So it was more of a moratorium of symbolism, if nothing else, but it didn't have much efficacy of what they're trying to do with the moratorium itself.
Okay, thank you for that information. All right, Stephanie, next comment.
We believe we have Allison next, and then Sai Semineni after her.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Council. Hello, Mayor.
Hi.
Council President Honda and the rest of the Council. Thank you for always allowing the public to speak. I think it's very important. I have to also just say thank you for bringing truth to power when things are said that are untrue, always having, our city attorney address them, or whatever department head is responsible to really bring facts to the table. Because I wish I could quote Council President Honda a few minutes ago, where she said something about social media being a really fun way to communicate. Because unfortunately, that's what we have. We have a lot of fear mongering on social media and sometimes in subgroups at public events, things like that really are just trying to kick the can, I guess, for our city and saying things like we should have a moratorium. A moratorium is really just saying we don't want to deal with it. And these issues are here. These issues are happening right now. And I think that the best thing we can do is work with our state legislature, work within the guidance of the laws, and figure out how to best serve everyone that lives in Federal Way, including all of those people that are houseless. The constant rhetoric behind, people don't live here, they're not from here, we know it's not true. Previous speakers, one of them said, where did they come from? And then the speaker before me said, these are from people from Federal Way. So, that camp doesn't even agree within themselves sometimes. But as far as I'm concerned, if they are residing here in Federal Way, then they live in Federal Way. I think that we need to be responsible to every person that lives here, try and encourage that everyone gets help, and really start using facts in our arguments and stop fear mongering. The other thing I just wanted to address as someone who works in the mental health field is that people who are mentally ill are not necessarily dangerous. Just like people who use drugs are not always dangerous. There's a very, very, very long and wide arch with people with both mental health issues, drug and alcohol addiction, as well as, trauma, which is what a lot of those people, almost every single one of those people has experienced at some point in their life and are probably going to experience it tonight. So I appreciate the city for making sure that we have facts out there. If people choose not to believe them, that's okay. If people choose not to partake in this process and be part of the solution, that's okay. But I really appreciate that the city always does its best to educate and to inform the best we can. I hope that we can continue to push forward and support the whole community and not try and be martyrs for just some people that are having some tough times. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, next speaker.
Next speaker is Sai Simonetti.
Hi, Sai. Sai, can you hear us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Allison was still speaking. Thank you, Mayor Farrell. Thank you, Council. I just wanted to underscore Brian's point for those citizens. You all seem very activated. Unfortunately, the mayor and the council cannot do anything about it. State housing law and King County's decisions directed by eminent domain or the growth management plan are outside of their jurisdiction. But if you want to talk to King County Council about those issues, they meet the Tuesday at 1 p.m. and you can find that information. But what council can do something about is the lack of availability of childcare and being more assertive about preventing violence. Mainly, it would be helpful if you, Mayor, could consider utilizing the unused or less used city buildings and consider them as expansion spaces for us to have interim childcare so that we don't only have 1,056 slots, which is hardly anything for a city over 100,000 people in terms of day-to-day childcare. I know we also have the PAEC, which is not in use all the time, and just a lot of city assets and resources. And maybe some of those things could be mobilized so that we can add an additional 150 to 100 childcare slots, which would be so vital and essential and economically prudent because it would allow more families to be able to join the workforce without struggling to find childcare. On the second point regarding violence, we have a lot of council resources, whether it's Prosecutor Leander Kraft or you yourself, Mayor Farrell, who are a former prosecutor, and working with Chief Wong so that we can work with King County to get more violence prevention resources would be greatly welcome.
Oh, Sai, did we lose you? Sai?
I see she's still connected.
On the things
Oh,
that
there she is.
Hey, Sai, we lost you. Well, hold on. Can you stop our timer? It looks like our timer stopped. Anyway.
I already did.
Okay, you're way ahead of it. Hey, Sai, I think we lost like 30 seconds. Can you rewind 30 seconds?
Yeah, what was the last thing you heard?
you guys. I heard.
I heard
violence prevention.
The mayor's
Violence
name
prevention.
mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yes.
Okay.
So first point, if we can use city assets to add a couple childcare slots and work with some of our providers like CRC or the Federal Way Black Collective. Second point, violence prevention. Anything that we can do to utilize our resources, whether it's Prosecutor Leander Kraft or you yourself, Mayor Farrell, to reach out to King County PAO and King County's executive to get more resources, that would be great. We account for 1 in 5 youth referrals to the county, as well as the greatest proportion of violence affecting young people. And so I think these are things that we can work on and get more resources, both for children 0 to 5, so that parents can go back to work and they have resources, as well as young people and community members affected by violence. But as far as the folks who are upset about housing, motels, etc., the mayor and council cannot do anything about it. King County Council meets Tuesdays at 1 p.m. if you would like to redirect that energy and activism. Thank you.
Thanks, Sai. Okay, Stephanie, any other live commenters?
No, Mayor, I think that we have gone through them all. The only 2 people we didn't have speak was David Vandevliet and Mandy Richardson. We don't see them on the line.
Okay.
So
If
I do have a number of letters to read.
if they rejoin, would you let me know at some point? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Susan Dismore, letter.
Okay. To Federal Way Mayor, City Council, and staff, the mission of government is to serve and protect the people, and per the Constitution, the people control the government. However, when the voices of the people are ignored, like they often are, it becomes clear that something has gone awry. A prime example of engrossed substitute House Bill 1220, the establishment of permanent supportive housing should be decided by the residents of the affected community, not by a blanket state mandate. So now we must turn back to you, our local leaders, to help us save our neighborhoods, businesses, and community from this destructive law. As I'm sure you're aware, the Puget Sound region, namely Seattle, is suffering from a serious debilitating disease labeled as homelessness crisis. But what is the root cause of this crisis, and why is it creeping deeper and deeper into Federal Way? It's possible that Seattle is kicking their unsolved problems south. This is a difficult issue compounded by politics and bad law, and despite that, my research and observation revealed that this crisis doesn't stem from people who are simply down on their luck, but rather is caused by 1, an overabundance of drug addicts whose dangerous, often illegal and unpunished behavior will only be enabled and exacerbated with free shelter and continued provision of replacement needles, and 2, the mentally ill who require professional help in an alternate or institutionalized setting. The City of Federal Way has numerous public safety and welfare codes that all citizens must adhere to. So why can't these same codes be integrated into new codes for permanent supportive housing and emergency shelter? For instance, no person who visits or resides in Federal Way should be allowed to litter, camp, urinate, defecate, or use drugs in any public or private property within the city limits. In addition, our police officers must be allowed to effectively enforce the law and depend on a judicial system for support. If those options aren't possible, why can't we push the state to create an alternate housing site like the virtually unused McNeil Island facility? Now is the time for you, our elected leaders, to stand up and fight for the good of this community. The honest, hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens of the city demand it. We don't want to reside in neighborhoods where there is increased crime and unsafe living conditions caused by an unruly element that our courageous police officers can no longer adequately control. To move forward with this proposed code without thoughtful consideration to the potential harm effects on the city's residents could potentially destroy the community completely. Thank you, Susan Dinsmore, born and raised Eastern Washington, 35-year resident of Federal Way. Next.
Okay. Do you want to just call them out? I'll just
Sure.
have you. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Sure. Next letter, Dara Mandeville says, I would like my comment to be read at the September 7th City Council meeting. I have a few questions for the mayor and City Council. 1, why are you doing a proclamation for National Recovery Month when you're allowing addicts to rot and die in the woods and not doing anything about them? You are enabling them, King County is enabling them, yet you turn around and proclaim a month to celebrate recovery. Yet there isn't one event on the calendar. 2, what does the city plan on doing with all the refugees after the initial 6 to 8 weeks you're allowing them to live in the extended stay? What compensation is the city receiving for them? Where is that money going since the county now owns the hotel? 3, why is the city completing and inflating the numbers of the Eyes on Federal Way app of completed service requests? Your city staff is creating, reporting, and then completing service requests all within 2 to 3 minutes on the app. A pizza box, a backpack, a child's bike. There's no reason for city staff to report when they're doing their job. Yet there are additional service requests from community members that are being completely ignored, some for 30 to 60 days, like the homeless encampment next to the fire station on 320th and 31st. Lastly, I want to make sure the zoning changes and the zoning commission tirelessly worked on and weren't able to come up with a recommendation because many concerns isn't passed through behind the citizens' backs because everything is virtual now. If you haven't caught on by now, many of us are paying attention. Moving to virtual meetings all of a sudden while there are all kinds of events happening in person was a cowardly move and a horrible attempt at keeping citizens in the dark. We are paying attention and will hold you accountable. Thank you for your time, Dara Mandeville.
Okay, now, Dara sent her email, sent the email with earlier today and asked for, had questions, so we have some answers. Dara, if you're listening, and for those that listened as well, we're not allowing addicts to rot and die in the woods, and we're not doing nothing about it. We don't condone people trespassing on private property or on public property, as we heard the city attorney say that today. So that's certainly not the policy of the city of Federal Way to do that. Number two, the folks, the Afghan refugees that's in the paper and that's been announced and it's been in regional media is not 6 to 8 weeks, it's 3 to 5 weeks. And you also asked about compensation the city is receiving for the Afghan refugees, but then you say that it's the county's hotel. It is the county's hotel. They did purchase that, and so therefore there's no reason for us to receive compensation, monetary compensation from the county. With regard to your question, let's see here. With regard to the question regarding the Eyes on Federal Way app, we have seen that before, that statement, and I've contacted E.J. Walsh, our Public Works Director, and would like him to address how we are working with and documenting work requests on Eyes on Federal Way. E.J.?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, Council President, members of Council. As the Mayor mentioned, we've seen this comment before. Earlier in August. So as a little bit of background for Public Works, prior to the Eyes on Federal Way app, we used a program that many of you have probably heard in previous conversations called ViewWorks to track work requests and unanticipated work within Public Works. This allowed us to see what resources were being used and to track open work items and document deferred maintenance, which has been the conversation at several council retreats. When we transitioned to a new system to track it, the Eyes on Federal Way system, we continued to follow the same procedures that were established in 2015 with the ViewWorks platform. So all of Public Works maintenance staff standing direction from me, which is the same as it's been for the last 15 years, is if they see something on the roadway and they can safely remove it, they're to do so regardless of if it's their assigned work or not. So in short, if one of our crews is already in an area and the task does not add additional time, it's not logged in Eyes on Federal Way. If the crew has to incur out of direction travel, if it's something that's not in their work schedule, then it is logged. So an example of that would be if one of our crews is done with assigned task of mowing a stormwater pond, replacing a sidewalk, trimming trees, whatever the case may be, and they're driving back to the maintenance yard northbound on Pack Highway, and they see a pizza box on the ground on the southbound side, their standing directions from me is they are, if they can facilitate it safely, I do want to throw that out there, they are to make a U-turn, collect it, log the garbage within the app. In this instance, it's not their assigned work, it's not their job in the context of the caller or the commenter, and it does take time that was not allocated to them. So we have to be able to account for that time somehow. And we need to have a system in place to document what staff's doing. That system is the Eyes on Federal Way app. So to be clear, that direction goes for all of maintenance, not just the litter crew. So if it's the litter crew and they stop and grab something, that's not logged. So we don't log stuff where it is the assigned work or in the terms of the comment or their job. So, and why we do that, I guess to kind of give a little bit of background, the system's also used to report between departments within the city. That's one of the benefits of the system. So for example, today I saw reports from police, code enforcement, and building inspectors that all submitted tickets to report illegal dumping within the right of way throughout the city. So public works staff, the litter crew, can get it on their phone, go out and resolve it. Those are all public works requests that we need to deal with, but they're not being generated by public works staff. So, but the caveat to that is the public can see all of those requests too, which, and it brings awareness. At the end of the day, it is a good thing, but it does create, police department, the code enforcement, building officials, anybody within the city, they submit it and it shows up as an employee. That data from all those sources is what allows an accurate representation of where issues are occurring and the heat maps that council has seen previously by our IT director. If we were to selectively remove portions of that data, we would not be able to accurately identify the best use of our resources. So one example of where we've done that is earlier this year, based on the data that we saw in the heat map specifically that we saw around this topic, around litter control, we went out and installed an additional 16 litter receptacles within the right of way, the giant steel trash cans you see on the street. In areas where this data showed that we had high concentrations of small size litter. So small size litter is fast food bags, drink containers, things along that line. All of those receptacles are seeing high use, and we've seen a reduction in ground litter in those areas. We skewed the data set by selectively including or excluding work. We wouldn't have been able to accurately figure out where we should be putting those containers. So that's a little bit of the background. That's what we're doing. Like I said, the key thing is if it's creating an additional workload for the staff, and the staff direction is to divert from what they're doing and pick up litter, yes, it is logged. That has been our standard since 2015.
All right, thank you. On the next paragraph, there was Brian Davison, Chief of Police. There is a claim that we have an open item with regard to the homeless encampment next to the fire station on 320th and 31st, east of the freeway. Brian, you want to take that first? Actually, the chief, Chief, you sent somebody out there today by the fire station encampment. Did you have a report on that first?
Sure, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. The property in question on 31st and South 320th is owned by South King Fire and Rescue. And on this particular incident, it is an open a task that's in Eyes on Federal Way. And the police department received this complaint, was transferred to the police department on August 23rd. So just a little over 2 weeks ago. And we did send an officer out there today, this afternoon, and the illegal, there are no illegal campers on this particular property. But we are aware about 6 blocks away from there are some occupied encampments and unoccupied. So we are going to actively work with code enforcement to clean up those sites. So the question in the email about an illegal encampment is not active at this time.
Brian, anything to add about these? There's 2 encampments in that area. One by the northbound exit off the freeway. Can you talk about that real quickly?
Yes, Mayor. So yes, this initially came in a few months ago, and it was, as Chief Wong mentioned, it was forwarded to them just a few weeks ago. So this has been, this particular case admittedly has had some confusion internally about who should handle it. So this is a bit of an anomaly for how long it should take. And so for that, I do apologize, but it is not off our radar, and we will be pursuing it.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, Dara, I hope that answers some of the questions, and wanted to make sure we got it to you as quick as possible. So next letter, I do believe it's Sarah Nelson.
All right, next letter. Dear Mayor and council members, I've been a resident of Federal Way since 2009. I'm raising my children here. I pay taxes here, and I'm navigating a massive disconnect between lip service and actual care for the homeless. You've declared this National Recovery Month, yet we hear it goes against a drug addict's rights to insist that assistance comes with a price tag of working towards recovery, aka no barrier housing with no expectation of treatment or background checks. Your declaration states, whereas an estimated 400,000 people in King County are affected by these issues, mental illness, substance abuse conditions. Many more people in King County are affected by these conditions than 400,000. Federal residents in particular are affected by these conditions daily. I drive to Kirkland once a week, and I can assure you that they are not experiencing the same conditions we are in Federal Way. I can't let my kids walk to the store here. I can't go to the Safeway alone after dark. My kids have seen people shoot up. Crime has risen exponentially since we moved here, despite what our mayor likes to proclaim. To ease the tension in our home, we sarcastically play, is that fireworks or gunshots? The increase in criminal activity is a direct result of the rampant and enabled drug in our city. And the rampant drug use is the direct result of your policies that enable addiction rather than encourage recovery. If you truly want to help drug addicts recover, start implementing expectations. Your current approach is shortening the lives of addicts and making Federal Way unlivable for the rest of us. It's been suggested that I and others who agree with me lack compassion. I have a great deal of compassion, but I don't conflate good feelings with accomplishing something useful. I encourage you to change course. I ask that you truly help everyone in Federal Way by having expectations of all of our residents, not just the ones who can afford to pay traffic tickets. Restore a Federal Way we can be proud to call our home. Before you don't have any taxpayers left to support your failed social projects. Sincerely, Sarah S. Nelson. Next letter is from Jim and Carolyn Hoover. It reads, Evening, Mayor Farrell, Deputy Mayor Honda, and City Council. The reality of homelessness on our streets and open spaces is that of untreated addiction and mental illness health issues. The allowed purchase of the hotels in our area by King County are nothing but a Band-Aid for King County. This so-called solution does almost nothing for the addicted wandering our streets in Federal Way. At most, we would see 15 out of 100 given walls in these hotels. The other 85 brought here will be unchecked, unvetted, and untreated. What is a long-term plan? Is there one? We have countless school children and families that will be forced into this concentrated, chronically homeless population. Did the council consider the impact of pre-K through 5th grade children? If the council did consider the impact, please share that report with the citizens of Federal Way. Please, that would be an interesting risk assessment to read. The parents of those children may disagree with the council's risk evaluation and conclusions reached. We already know there's a giant crime problem here, bringing more untreated drug addicts, bringing with it more crime, drug dealers, gang problems, theft, assault, etc. I think we can all agree our government owes a duty to equally protect everyone, not just people who are disadvantaged because of life choices, addiction, or mental illness. A duty of equal protection is owed to the residents of Federal Way regardless of age, race, national origin, religious beliefs, sexual orientation or identification, marital status, income, family size, people who own homes, renters of homes, apartments, or other dwellings in the city. People who go to work, go to school, pay real estate property taxes, purchase goods and services which are taxed in the city, generating tax revenue to spend on equal protection of all residents. Is the purchase of these hotels a building block piece in the overall long-term strategy of Federal Way to connect, create, and implement a long-term solution? Or is it a short-term Band-Aid that really does nothing to solve anything? If this is part of a long-term strategy, please provide the citizens of Federal Way the actual long-term strategy so that we can see how hotel purchases are a piece to the strategy that will be built upon. People need to go home from work every night and feel safe. They need to know their children can walk and play in their neighborhood. They need to know their children can walk to school safely. People need to know they're equally protected. Please make the smart decisions to protect us all. We're counting on you. Sincerely, Jim and Carolyn Hoover. Next letter is from David Zumwalt. It reads, I'm writing today to object to the City of Federal Way adopting September as National Recovery Month. One might ask, why would you object when you are in recovery yourself? Because Federal Way does not have any policies in place that support recovery from substance abuse or mental health disorder. Instead, Federal Way supports drug use by allowing the free needle giveaway van to dump thousands of needles into our city each week. Whatever happened to the lawsuit the city was going to file against King County Public Health, allowing King County to open no barrier safe injection housing in our downtown area that's already a hotspot for public drug use and crime, not prosecuting for drug crimes or retail theft, allowing illegal camping on private and public property. The proclamation states we must encourage relatives and friends of individuals with mental and or substance use disorders to implement preventative measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. The policies that King County and the City of Federal Way have in place are not conducive to a healthy recovery program, and they actually undermine the work the family is putting in to get their loved ones into treatment. Handing out free needles and providing no barrier safe injection housing is enabling. Continued use of drugs and alcohol always leads the addict to three places: jails, institution, and or death. Until our city adopts some policies that will hold SEATIC responsible for their lives and promotes actual recovery, I ask that we do not proclaim September National Recovery Month. David Zumwalt. Next letter is from Stephanie Smith, and it reads, Dear City Council of Federal Way, I've recently moved to the city of Federal Way with my young family from Seattle. We left Seattle to get away from crime, drug use, and violence that has been skyrocketing. Federal Way looked to provide a safe place to raise our young family of a 1-year-old and 3-year-old. We have been here since June, and I've been extremely surprised by what I personally witnessed and experienced when I'm out with my children during the day. I've seen more people passed out after shooting up in broad daylight in front of my family with no consequence. I've seen people walk out of almost every store I enter with backpacks full of stolen items. I've been followed from stores and asked for money in parking lots more than I can count. I already don't feel safe in my new city. It seems like there are shootings every night. What is happening in this city, and how are the elected officials still allowing our city to be overrun by this? We need help, but buying houses in neighborhoods all around us, the city, to allow them to continue this behavior with no recourse, required treatment, or background checks will only encourage this activity instead of getting them the help they truly need and regaining safety and allowing our city to start thriving. Housing first programs have not been shown to be effective in stopping homelessness. They struggle with addiction, mental illness, or behavior disorders, and giving them a house with no parameters is reckless and downright dangerous for everyone in the surrounding areas. It's not treatment or recovery that they actually need. I urge you to drive around the city for a week and see how bad these issues are truly getting. We need more law enforcement, and I oppose housing the chronic homeless drug addicts without treatments and background checks. That was from Stephanie Smith. Next letter is from Brenda McRae. It reads, Members of the Federal Way City Council and Mayor Jim Farrell. I'm writing this letter to ask that you please put a stop to housing the homeless drug addicts in Federal Way without any sort of background check or treatment options. Can you not see what is happening in our city? We're turning into another Seattle. Do you honestly think that these homeless addicts in Federal Way want to stay in these hotels? You obviously are not out in the community asking them, because I can tell you with absolute certainty that they do not want this. They want to live with no rules, as we have been told, and I don't know how many hundreds of times. How dare you put these people in housing without background checks and house them so close to children in schools? Where is the accountability? The citizens of Federal Way voted you into office thinking you were going to make our city better. I would probably bet the people who voted for you wish they could take their vote back. Sincerely, Brenda McRae. Next letter is from Lakeisha Phillips. It reads, Good evening, Federal Way City Council. My name is Lakeisha Phillips, and I'm a current resident and parent here in Federal Way. Trying to navigate the childcare system as we return to the various shutdowns by both jobs and daycares is extremely complex. We've had to juggle between early learning centers and trying to find the ones that will be flexible with our ever-changing schedule and needs. If there's an opportunity for the city to find and support increased services with childcare resources that broker information for parenting and ease locating childcare here in Federal Way, I think that would be great. Thank you, Lakeisha Phillips. Next letter is from Tiffany LaFontaine. Hello, Mayor Farrell and City Council members. I want to take this opportunity to make a request of the City of Federal Way. Following the shutdown of our community and the slow return due to COVID, our working families need to know that childcare is just as important to the City of Federal Way as it is to them. We are a diverse community with many resources, but childcare is still an issue. We can combat this need by partnering with childcare resources. $100,000 provided by the city will provide Federal Way in-home childcare centers with 4 dedicated coaches who will assist with licensing needs trainings, ages and stages testing, and in-person mentoring for providers and centers. As a preschool teacher here in Federal Way, I can't describe to you the importance of early childhood education in a safe, loving environment. ECE is the best basics on which all children should start school. Too many children go into kindergarten without the basic social, emotional rules set forth by early childhood educators. Because of our lack of affordable access, many kids skip 0 to 5 education completely, and the result is kids who enter kindergarten fidgety, unable to stand in line, share, express feelings, know how to treat others kindly and possessions carefully. They're more likely to get in trouble and be labeled as problem kids, a label that can stay with them until high school and beyond. Overwhelmingly, these are children of color. We must do better to show our community that our children are important and worthy of a great start. Please consider adding a line item to assist with the funding of these experts. Thank you for your time, Tiffany LaFontaine, preschool teacher. And this is the last letter I have, Mayor. It is from Lynn Idahosa. It reads, Good evening, Mayor Farrell and council members. Today I wanted to share with you some crucial statistics that I feel you are missing, a huge opportunity to support families in Federal Way. I've heard many comments about why people are unable to return to work or maintain steady employment. Did you know that there are only 88 daycares in Federal Way, which means we only have 1,056 slots. It's a matter of not only early learning, but a matter of economic development to see that childcare is an issue of capacity building and workforce development. I'm urging you all to utilize ARPA funds to immediately refund Child Resource Center, the state DCYF contractor, to support dedicated coaching by 4 CRC employees to support centers based and licensed in the city of Federal Way. I bet you're wondering why we don't already have a contract, since so many of our neighbors already do and their centers are able to access these dedicated services. The reason is because it was previously underfunded and it was impossible for them to bear the burden of in-person activities without proper compensation from the city of Federal Way. We cannot become a tech hub, as you all desire per the current city plan, without childcare. We cannot open properly. Our restaurants and grocery stores cannot stay open to feed families if employees cannot ensure their children are cared for. This is no longer, nor was it ever, an individual issue. This has always been a needs and considered as such by you as the budget keepers as a priority to keep our city running, just like the Federal Way PD currently utilizes the majority of our city budget while these essential services are left unfunded. This is an issue of economic development and not appropriate to continue to push into the Federal Way public schools. These are local business owners who need your support and attention for our most vulnerable, our babies. Federal Way Black Collective launched a poll last week, and we have already heard overwhelming responses after Governor Inslee's most recent executive order. After we've had an opportunity to connect with them to resources, they posed hard questions we are passing on to you all. Now that schools are reopened, and it is concerning to have K-5 before and after school care, where you also have full daycare for those under 5 because they cannot commit to a smaller circle or pose less of a possibility for exposure. Also, what happens when a kid has sniffles? Who is training providers to ensure that they have the best practices for policies? The coach is responsible for assisting licensed centers with the laborious updates and are traditionally from CRC, so systematically failing to maintain that contract ensures our daycares do not have access to the resources that DCYF and state legislators expected them to have, because Federal Way as a municipality has a responsibility to connect with CRC, just like most other municipalities, especially the large ones like ours. Last year, all you authorized $1,000 for eligible daycare providers. It is not time for your next investment, and it is imperative that you keep them coming. Our providers needing this access to keep the babies and children in Federal Way safe and healthy. This is about stopping the spread of COVID-19 and deserves your immediate attention. I urge you all to immediately take action and fund this critical priority. Thank you, Lynn. That's the last letter I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I have 8:18. I need to, I am calling for a 12-minute recess so we could just take a quick break and resume right at 8:30. Any objection to that? Okay, all right, let's take a quick break. We'll reconvene at 8:30. We've got 12 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's already like, there's a flag and there's all these little like pedestal monuments things for, so, yeah, it's not necessarily for the 9/11, I don't think. I think it's for something else. It's for just a veterans memorial.
But it's like a permanent fixture?
Yeah, yeah.
How big is it?
I mean, it's good size.
Is this something I can get with a drone, or do with a drone shot, or?
It might. It might. You might as well bring it. Just in
Yeah,
case,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Fly, you know. But yeah, it's right at the top of the steps. It's not the entire length of the steps, but it's probably at least half the steps.
Oh, okay.
I haven't been out there to see it. But I guess I'll be out there Saturday now.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good thing you don't have to go to the fire station afterwards, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I just have,
As far as setting up working.
yeah, no kidding. No kidding. All right. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I got you.
We can't hear you, Mayor.
This happened last time too.
It looks like his mic is dead.
Me now?
Oh, now we can hear him.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, if I hang up my headset and I'm in the same meeting, it turns off the micro, even if I've got it on there. So sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so let's resume the meeting. Thank you very much for your patience. And my understanding is David Van Vliet has joined us for public comment. So that worked out. Do we have David queued up, ready to go?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We can, David. Yep, got it. Go ahead, sir.
Yep, thanks very much. Regarding the proposed code amendments for permanent supportive housing and emergency housing and shelter, if you examine all the waste, fraud, and abuse that takes place as a result of the kinds of ambiguous proposal guidelines the state is demanding the city to bow to, you can see why the city should not take any action on House Bill 1220 until they receive concrete numbers from the county after they receive concrete numbers from the state, which will not be forthcoming until mid-2023. The just give us your best guess method results in figures like Medicaid misspending $140 billion in 2019 and 2020, or the $87 billion in improper unemployment insurance payments made by the end of the pandemic jobless aid. According to House Bill 1220, a city can impose a moratorium, interim zoning map, interim zoning ordinance, or interim official control. Each would delay the establishment of drug houses in single-family neighborhoods for at least 6 months, with each to be accompanied by a public hearing to be held within 60 days of the adoption of any of the above. This would give the citizens living in their currently less crime-ridden neighborhoods the opportunity to either arm themselves against the coming onslaught of break-ins or leave the state before their property values plummet. The proposed amendments offered by the planning manager during the last planning commission meeting as being, quote, in the best interest of the residents of the city, without listing even one benefit to the residents, is like Jesse Johnson telling those same residents the abolition of policing will make their neighborhoods even safer. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, Stephanie, do we have any other public comment?
No, Mayor, I don't have anybody else.
All right. Thank you to everybody who submitted a letter and to the public comment, and I'm glad we got David on there. Okay, now let's move on to the item 5, the consent agenda. I see only one item. It's the minutes for the August 10th, 2021 regular and special meeting minutes. Council President Honda, do you have a motion with respect to item A?
Yes, I'd like to pull it. No, just joking.
Need a PowerPoint.
I approve approval of item A on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item A passes unanimously. All right, before we get to item 6, council business, item A, before we get a presentation from our Economic Development Director, Tim Johnson, Councilmember Assefa Dawson, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, earlier I did not see this email was sent to me right before we went to the special meeting from Tim Johnson to report on LTAC. So I did not want to miss this opportunity. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to do this. And so a few things that are worth noting were that the annual DESNA Cup returned after a year's hiatus due to COVID last month during our summer recess. So we just wanted to acknowledge that. And then this weekend, the Washington State Bodybuilding Championship will be held at the PAC. And then, city staff has been working with over 20 cities across the state to share and understand how the Delta variant of COVID-19 has or is impacting tourism. And this work should be completed by the middle of the month in the effort to understand the impact and subsequent opportunities to serve both leisure and business travelers. And that's what I wanted to add. Thank you, Tim Johnson, for this report. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, item A, approval to apply for a state grant of $50,000 with match of $50,000 from ARPA for broadband study. First, we'll have a staff report from the hardest working person in city government, Tim Johnson. Timothy.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Before I start, timing is everything. So, Council Cefados tried to get that to you well in advance, but thank you. We're talking about approval to apply for a state grant for broadband. The question before us is, should the City Council approve the Mayor's recommendation to apply for a state grant from the Community Economic Revitalization Board, otherwise known as CERB, with support from Matching American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funding for a citywide broadband feasibility study. First, you might ask yourself, why are we doing this? Again, recall the goal of the council mayor has been to look at a tech hub. And as we have been doing extensive research, particularly almost a dozen case studies across the country of cities similar to size and characteristic of Federal Way, the initial efforts to create a tech hub and the leadership of political leadership of the communities all embraced working first in that effort was to identify the deployment of a broadband system to help grow entrepreneurial efforts to support their community in a variety of ways I'll just talk about here in a minute. It was amazing. We will have this report completed for you in the next 30 to 45 days, but you will see firsthand that it has been broadband that has been a major backbone for success in achieving a tech hub. Correspondingly, while we're doing this report, state legislature passed Senate House Bill 1336. This occurred and went into law effectively at the end of July. And it allows cities and counties now to provide retail services of the internet to its community. A substantial change in state law that is allowing Washington communities to do something that's never done before. I also want to thank, moving into, we recognize that COVID-19 exposed a variety of weaknesses to the internet service, particularly last year. I want to thank you, the council, mayor, for your allocation of $100,000 to the school district, which allowed helping and assist the school district with increasing hotspots for students and families trying to work from home remotely and get educated. But that was only a temporary fix. What we've learned is that we have to have a more robust internet service to support those needs going forward. So key areas again are for our students as it pertains to education, to our seniors, specifically as we now start to deal with telemedicine and helping them and ensuring that they get quality service. And of course, something I talked to you about, all of you about at the ARPA workshop that we did, the key issue between seniors and banking and the changes that are going on that are being expedited by COVID-19 as it pertains to banking. That is a key issue that we're seeing. And I do want to preempt something, Mayor. I know that you and I have talked about this, sir, but that when I had asked your assistance, Mayor and Council, during the workshop relative to seniors and financial technology, I then reached out to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve is going to support the City of Federal Way in support of a program with seniors and financial technologies and banking. So I tip my hat to you on that leadership on that. I think it's going to be it's going to be a heavy lift, but it is going to be a national program that is going to be heralded, I think, and more to that item to come. Then, of course, the one that's so very important to us is to address all the issues associated with income. The corresponding cost for internet and internet speeds goes up exponentially. We need to ensure that those costs are, how should I say, limited, and if not, eliminated. So those are opportunities that this feasibility study would provide you in your framework for looking at moving forward. During the last, say, 120 days, 4 months, 5 months, the directors of finance, IT, and myself have spent considerable time on research. And it is this research that you enabled us to do with your goal of becoming a tech hub, that we were able to ascertain that the state entity, the Community Economic Revitalization Board, provides this kind of grants. And so quickly we moved on this and are prepared and ready, as you can see with our request, if you will allow us to submit a grant of to the state agency with a corresponding match that is required from our American Rescue Plan Act program. So the question before you tonight then is to approve the application for a SERV grant for broadband feasibility study, apply the maximum amount of the state grant, and it offers up to $50,000. Subsequently submitting the grant application by the upcoming deadline of September 27th, approve the grant match from ARPA, LFRF, and subsequently providing a one-to-one match funds of $50,000 for a total cost of $100,000. Thomas, your IT director, and myself spent considerable time. Thomas asked a very prolific question to the director of the CERB and saying, how much might it cost? And she was quite frank and upfront with us and saying it's probably going to be somewhere around $65,000 to $75,000. So we should have sufficient amount of money to do this feasibility study to the size of the community of ours. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
All right, Councilmember Cepheus.
Thank you so much, Tim, for the presentation. And my question is, with the broadband study and then broadband that we are expected to roll out at some point, and from between 2024 to 2028, I know it starts out with businesses and stuff. So my 2024, is that soon enough? And do we even have the capacity, or can we do it sooner? And then also in your report, you have something about diversity and supporting in residents. So what exactly does that look? Are we talking about economic diversity, or are we also talking about language and language and cultural type.
Excellent question. You're kind of jumping ahead of me. This may be all premature if we don't get the grant, but I can take give you a quality answer to that point. First, as it pertains to can we move by 2024? This is the first step of what will be multiple steps to get there. This is the feasibility that gives us an examination of what the inventory is of the facilities and services and infrastructure that exist in Federal Way, both from public and private perspective. Once we understand that, then we'll have a fairly good idea what the magnitude associated with design, engineering, and construction and corresponding timelines will be. But from the case studies that we have been able to examine, the cities that have been in exactly the same position that we're in currently, they have been able to move relatively quickly. And what that timeline is typically 3 to 4 years to be able to actually get full deployment across their community. We start with the concept of our commercial area because they can pay for that, and it is a cost of doing business. The other thing is that they are, as you all know, in a consolidated geographical area. So it's quick to serve. And then from there, you can move relatively quickly into your residential areas and start serving them too as well. But as you well know, we do have conduit throughout the downtown area that's easy for us to back on. And I don't want to jump too far down this rabbit hole with you, but that was the rationale behind it. But yeah, we are up against timeline, as you note on that requirement in the staff report as it relates to state policy. As it relates to language, of course, that depends upon the software that you're using and how you intend to use it. So at this point, this is an infrastructure issue that we're addressing.
Okay, thank you. Council President
Honda. Thank you, Tim. So this will just study the downtown area and not the entire city?
No, ma'am. It is a city-wide study.
Okay.
Citywide.
So, I remember something recently in the last year with Sound Transit in which we are going to be putting the infrastructure down for broadband along the rail line. Is that, is that correct?
Maybe EJ could address that.
Or Thomas.
Yeah, so as part of the agreement with the Federal Way Link extension, they are, in lieu of meeting some of the requirements, they've paid us to install a fiber optic line to go effectively from the transit center to the intersection of Military and 272nd using city roads as opposed to along the track route, because there was concern about the city's ability to access that fiber. Concerns from Sound Transit, not the city, about this city's ability to access that fiber line when it was in the transit way that was not along a road. So yes, they did pay us. That's fiber, which is not directly broadband, but I'll let Thomas, if he wants to chip in on how the two interact.
It's a good question, and it's Council President Honda. It's a project that's a long time in the making. We've been putting in these kind of small builds along roadways, if you will, and taking advantage of projects such as Sound Transit and these opportunities to build a network, mainly of conduit, not so much of fiber. And so with the Sound Transit project, it gets us at least fiber connectivity. Some of these projects and some of these conduits we can use to resell, others we cannot, just depending on how we acquired the fiber and some of the infrastructure. And so this study that we're going to be applying, they're going to take a look at all of our resources that we have and see how it all kind of works together to provide some sort of a service. So keep in mind that we are up against, or not up against, but we're competing with other cities that have started this way back in the 90s. And here we are in 2021. And so we've had a lot of catch up to do, and this is definitely a great start. And I'm pleased at the work that Tim has put into this project, because it's quite substantial, and this is going to be a big key to getting that vision underway.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to see if my memory was correct about. Thank you.
All right, Council President Honda, do you have a motion?
Oh, I sure do. I move approval to submit a grant application for $50,000 and use ARPA funds to match.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. For discussion, Councilmember Moore, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Farrell. Tim, my understanding is that your amazing interns have played a role in this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to give them a shout out and just thanking them as well, and of course your department. Tim, I know that you had a major piece of this, but I really want to take the time to thank our young interns that made this possible too.
So just to add on to that quickly, they concluded their work with us last Friday. They've been here for the last full-time working with us for the last 3 months on this project for you council members. If we get this grant, you will really see their work as it pertains to the research and the RFP that will come before you and the outline of the framework of the program moving forward. The work that they have completed is yet to come to fruition, but when you see it, you will be overwhelmed by the work that they did. And I believe Mayor Farrell always complimented them every day, said that they've turned over the Sister City room into a war room, if you will, on broadband. And it's tremendous to see, and you will be overwhelmed by it. And hopefully we will have all of these young people back the night that you accept the grant and move on with the RFP, and you can thank them individually.
Very good. Okay, there's been a motion, a second, and some discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Tim, thank you and the interns, and we'll look for more later. Thank you. Okay, Diversity Commission appointments. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. It's my pleasure to make the following motion to make the following appointments to the Diversity Commission. Allison Fine and Shante Lane, both to voting positions with the term to expire on May 31st, 2024.
All right.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's unanimous for Ms. Fine and Ms. Lane. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve for both of those. Item C, Senior Advisory Commission appointments. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. Again, it is my pleasure to make the motion for the following appointments to the Senior Advisory Commission. We have Catherine North, appointed to a voting position with a term to expire August 31st, 2024. And the other two positions are the same for Lana Bostic and Margaret Lippert. Is there a second?
Second.
And a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
As with the Diversity Commission appointees and with these appointees, thank you to all of those who applied and are going to make such a big difference for our city. Thank you very much.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Catherine North, Lana Bostic, and Margaret Lippert are approved unanimously. Item D, Planning Commission appointments. Councilmember Baruso.
Mayor, we've not voted on this one at all. We're held on this till.
Okay. Council President Honda, did you have a motion? This is what I started the meeting because I saw some email traffic about this.
We are not taking any action on this tonight.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion for that?
No. Brian?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. No action taken. Then we'll just pass over the item. All right. Item E, Youth Commission appointment. Councilmember Kochma.
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. It is again my pleasure to move to extend the Youth Commission term for Ankit Gowda for an additional year through August 31st, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Ankit Gowda is appointed successfully and unanimously. Council reports. First, we'll start off with Councilmember Asefa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. MSC Luncheon is on October 21st, and I'm hosting a table. So if anybody would like to sit at my table, please let me know, because I'm trying to fill it. And it's going to be at 11:30 at the PAC. So let me know. September 11th is also Ethiopian New Year. Usually it's around the 11th and the 12th. So it's always been bittersweet. And actually that is also my anniversary of when I arrived into the United States of America. So there's multiple things that I either celebrate or at least memorialize on that day. So it's a very important day for me personally. And I went to New York for white coat ceremony for Joshua, and it was wonderful, great, but I had to return quickly because the storm hit. So didn't even get to see New York, but maybe it was a good thing because it was really difficult being in a city that you know nothing about. And so navigating and getting around was not like being here in Federal Way for me. So, that was interesting. But I think with that, the only thing I wanted to add to this is I know Council President Honda and I were talking to Judge Robinson and Judge Larson. And one thing that came up was the homeless service coordinator position. And I'm surprised that it was part of the public petition. Not surprised, but it's the fact that it's there. And I think it's something that we should further discuss at some point to see if this is something that's feasible. And I think with that, I'll end my report. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Councilmember Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of PSAs. Again, vaccination, we have breakthroughs with folks that are vaccinated, so please consider and get your vaccination. That would be great for COVID-19. The other item is, I don't know if everyone's paying attention, but make sure that long-term care in the state, that you need to opt out. You need to take a look at that information. You have till November 1st to make sure you have some type of plan in place. And so that has to do with a lot of folks that are working in the state, your children, your wives, your spouses, and things like that. So take a look at it, kind of snuck up on folks, and you need to have something in place to be into the state plan. I also look forward to 9/11, as you know, so the events that day, looking, celebrating, and memorializing that. The only other question I have, Mr. Mayor, is I have a question on DEI position. I haven't heard anything. Can you tell me where we're at with that?
Yes, I was talking to Council President Honda recently, and actually another council member. We're working on the details. I'm working with HR and also Public Works, both EJ, our director, and Desiree, our deputy director, about possibly combining responsibilities with another position to make this a full-time position. And with Title VI requirements in regard to projects that we do in regard to outreach, that seemed like maybe one of the great that we could actually bring the two positions together, create a full-time position, and really kind of change, allow an ability for a full-time person. But it's not fully baked yet, so that's probably why you haven't got the full report. But what I'll do is I'll ask EJ and Desiree and Vanessa, our HR manager, to coordinate, make a final recommendation to me And once the final recommendation is made with some details and some job descriptions, we would we'll get that over to you. But that's sort of the peek behind the curtain, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I was kind of wondering. A lot of folks were. So.
Yeah, I think it creates a different dynamic and a different pool of candidates for part-time positions. I think that was probably, that was not a barrier, but a certain consideration for a certain number of applicants. And I think we can all agree that when people are looking for employment, there's certain people are looking for part-time, but I think the vast majority of which are looking for a full-time employment opportunity, and that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that ends my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much to report out. I have a very uneventful summer. So I spend most of the time at home helping my son, dealing with his medical condition. My youngest son, Jonathan, just moved to Atlanta last Saturday. Don't ask me why he decided to move to Atlanta, but that is where he is at now. So my wife and I, we try to support him as much as we could. Other than that, I don't have anything to report out. I will probably take a long vacation after November.
Hear, hear. Yes.
With that, I end my report. Thank you.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. All right. And Councilmember Kraft.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say Shana Tova, Happy New Year to our Jewish friends here in Federal Way and around. I also wanted to say that I'm really thankful that our city is willing and able to help the Afghan refugees. If you're looking at the international news lately, the destruction is pretty devastating. And I'm really happy that our city is stepping up to the plate. I also wanted to support some people on the public comment today who said that we really need to be able to have affordable childcare in our state and also especially in our city when we know that people are struggling, especially mothers of young kids, to go back to work. So I very much support the people who came on public comment, and thank you for everyone who participated today on our first council meeting after our summer break. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to also echo the words with my colleague right before me, Councilmember Kraft. Childcare is becoming one of those issues that we're starting to hear even at the local area, local government. And I think it really says something, and it says that citizens are being helped. Many of you guys will know, and the public that's still listening or will listen to it later, my wife and I adopted our beautiful baby boy, Judah. Love him to pieces. My goodness. And it's really interesting because we are trying to navigate childcare even at 5 months old. I obviously, like all of my colleagues, I've been listening to a lot of our public comments, and I do appreciate the childcare. That obviously speaks to me quite a bit. And I'm at a point where my wife is a social worker, works full time, and thank God she's able to work at home remotely. And that kind of helps a little bit with childcare. I work part-time as an executive director of a nonprofit, and I work there Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And I share the story because she and I are constantly having to really navigate who has Judah and who doesn't, and if only we had a childcare that was affordable and not a mortgage payment, and access to one, because my understanding is, as I've said many times, I'm still navigating this. I'm still learning about this childcare. but there's slots and care. I don't know what to call them. Providers. I'll just call them providers. Will only take so many. So now that's something new that I also have to navigate and try to find childcare. Try to make sure it's affordable, just so that I can try to work Monday through Friday every single day. Instead, I can't work Tuesday and Thursdays because I'm here at home taking care of my son. So childcare is a really, it's an issue that affects everybody, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of if you're a middle-class family or not. But it is an issue that I am going to be working with my colleagues the next few months that I have left in office. Mr. Mayor, I hope that we can work on this as well as partners to try and be the city of answers and solutions for all of our families. And I will say, especially for our middle class families, that is just so important because too many times, you know, we're penalized because we make too much money. When in fact, we still need that support. So just food for thought, things I'm kind of reflecting on during this meeting. And with that, I will end my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Mayor Farrell. Well, many of us have already been through the child care dilemma over our lifetimes as well, so certainly understand that. I believe it was Tiffany LaFontaine who mentioned $100,000 from the city for early child care, as well as Lynn Idahosa about the fact that you need to have child care to help with workforce development, and perhaps some of that money could come from ARPA funds. And so maybe we could look into that, Mayor. I think that, you know, I'm taking my little great-granddaughter to not even pre-K, but it's preschool, because I realize how important it is. You know, if you start with preschool and then go to pre-K, by the time they get to kindergarten, they're, as I believe it was Lynn that talked about social emotional development and being able to stand in line, being able to have follow rules. And, you know, a very simple thing like holding a pencil and some children being able to write their names. If they get behind in kindergarten, they're behind in first grade and they're behind all the way through. It just sort of follows them. It's a difficult thing to deal with. So I think it's very important that we look at the early child care. And so if there are any ARPA funds out there that we could put toward that, I think it would be an extremely valuable thing to do. And finally, Mayor, when we talk about 9/11 and we're there to memorialize those people who lost their lives, I hope that we also include our own first responders, some of whom are under attack right now. And I think it's become of the lax, the changes in the, there's different things that have changed now. One of the is the laws, but we need to protect our police officers as well as our citizens. So we need to remember that our first responders, our firefighters, our police also need our support. And so anyway, so let's remember them as well on 9/11. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Council President Honda.
Thank you. I'd like to make sure that the community knows that on Thursday, September 16th, from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at the PAC, there will be a community open house on the Housing Action Plan. This is something that has been worked on for the last year or so. Every city has completed a housing action plan. Our staff did a great job, as well as the citizen committee that the staff worked with. But the council was very insistent that we have some kind of in-person public open house so that the public can have input into this. This could potentially change the way that the city of Federal Way looks, and it talks about different types of housing, where that housing would go. It's really, really, really important. And I would just encourage you to please drop in at the PAC on Thursday, September 16th from 4:30 to 7. Please wear a mask, socially distance. But if you have an interest in how the city will be looking in the future, and this is a long-term plan, 20 plus years, please come and give us your input because we would really love to hear from the community. There was some input during the last year, but it was all virtual input, and we really felt as a council it was important to have an in-person event where people could actually look at the information and talk to staff. I would also like to talk about how people work these days. I understand that actually in my own family, my son works for a major retail company in the Pacific Northwest in human services. And his office is at his home now, and it will always be at his home. His company gave him some funding to provide an office for him at home. And the whole department is working from home at this point and does not plan to go back to an office in Seattle. And during the course of the pandemic, I think we've all learned that how we work and how we've worked in the past has changed. And I would encourage the mayor to please think about allowing some of the employees at the city who are able to work from home for a day or two during the week and come to work at City Hall for the rest of the week. But I think it's important that we do the best for our employees. They are the best investment we have in the city. And I would encourage the mayor to please look again at that policy. I realize that the city council does not make those decisions and that the mayor does, but I would ask him to look again at that policy of allowing some employees who are able to work from home part-time. And 9/11, I was going to write a speech about 9/11. That was a day that changed the world. It changed so many things in everyone's life. I'm glad that the 20th anniversary is on a Saturday. And I'm glad that it's on a Saturday because our school children will be able to go to the events. Generally speaking, it's, the events are held during the school day and students can't go and can't feel the emotion and the look at people's faces and understand what happened. They weren't alive when this happened. And it's something that for those of us who were alive, we remember what we were doing when we heard about what was happening. So I've been searching the internet for what's going on throughout the country on this 20th anniversary. And many, many articles I've read say the same thing. They talk about unity and honor and compassion, hope, resiliency, unity, never forget. They talk about the lessons we learned that we are one as a country, and we came together that day as a country, and that we showed compassion for one another. It was truly a life-changing event, and I would just encourage families to please allow your children on Saturday to attend as many events as you can get to safely, to perhaps watch television and watch the programming that is on this week about 9/11, and to truly never forget, not to forget the people that we lost and the heroes that went into those buildings and those sites to save people, because their lives were forever affected. One of the interesting articles that I came across is titled "How Memories of Japanese American Imprisonment During World War II Guided the U.S. Response to 9/11." I had never heard about this before. I'm going to send it to Jerry Lynn and ask her to send it out to the council members and perhaps put it on our Facebook page. It's a very interesting article, and as my in-laws were children during World War II and lived for several years in internment camps because they're Japanese Americans. This really hit home with me, and I think that it would be interesting for everyone to read. So anyway, 9/11, you know, it's called Patriot Day, a national day of service and remembrance. I've always felt it should be a national holiday, a day where we can just, everyone can take the day off who can, and serve others, because truly that's really important. So we will see you on Saturday at the steps. We will see you at the fire station, and the city of Milton is also having a event at 3 o'clock at their Veterans Memorial, and I would encourage you to go there also. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Kochmar, did you have a quick comment? Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
That sneaky little mute button. Thank you, Council President. That was wonderful. Thank you for that. That was a speech, and thank you very much. Mayor, I just wanted to ask, are we going to have any kind of report on the Afghan refugees and how that's going to affect the community and what we're planning for?
Yes, as soon as we get more information.
Maybe at our next council meeting.
Yes, that's a good idea. We'll talk about that at agenda setting.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mayor. Thank you.
As soon as that information is available through all the relevant information has been released to you in the community through the article. September 14th is when we expect it. Duration about 3 to 5 weeks, and the program would end no later than December, and then the Health Through Housing would begin at that hotel. That's what we've got at this point. We'll talk with Leo Floor. We'll get more information. I'll have Bill reach out to King County tomorrow and get updated information and a presentation. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Safadas.
I just wanted to say that thank you, Mayor, by the way, for letting me add this, but I wanted to support what Council President Honda said around working from home or remote work situation. And so I would hope that you would reconsider this. My agency already closed down everything, and we're back to phase 0, I believe is what they call it. And I don't know when we're going back, if we're ever going back. And so I just wanted to add my few cents to what Council President Honda said. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And I hear you loud and clear. I think that there's a very small percentage of people that work at the city that would have that luxury and that option. Most of the people that work for the city, whether it's the police department, which contributes at least half of the people that work for the city, whether that's the public works, parks, people that work at the community center, I think we're talking of a pretty small number of folks that would have that option. And the other thing is that well, obviously if we're meeting remotely because of concerns about the uptick in COVID exposures, as the council president talked about. And certainly we will, if there's a rollback, we'll go back there. But I do feel very strongly that this is a service delivery organizations. And I also think that if you really think about it, really that's, it's a very small number of people that work for the city, that no one that works in the courts, nobody that works in the, all the court clerks and the prosecutors and defense attorneys. And I mean, if we're shut down, that's one thing, but if we're not, this is a service delivery organization. So I think that we need to be here, and when the doors are open, we need to be here and work for the people of the city. So, but I'll think about, I think what what the council president mentioned, and I think what you chimed in Council Member Assefa Dawson is, 1 or 2 days, but I'll put some more thought into it, but there's an equity issue here as well. Is there, are we just going to let 10% of our employees work remotely while everybody else has to come to work? I don't know. I'll put some more thought into it. And I certainly respect and appreciate your thoughtful comments. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Great meeting. It's my honor and privilege to serve with each and every one of you. I will see you on 9/11 at 11 a.m. For our event, and at the firefighter event after that. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for a great meeting. We are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.